Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, we discuss my thoughts on episode 21 of Season 2 of ClassicaLoid. And this was a pretty interesting episode. I'm going to be completely honest. By the end of this episode, I almost debated whether or not I was going to come on and talk about the episode in this video. I debated whether or not I was going to do this video because I'm somebody who always likes to have a sort of conversational hook when it comes to an episode, whether it be relating to the emotions, highs and lows that I felt all throughout an episode, or if I found something particularly funny and the ways in which I found it funny, hilarious, that kind of thing. I never like to come on and just sort of do a rudimentary recap, explaining everything that happened. And when I was done with this episode, my initial feeling was, well, anything I really kind of say about it is just going to be sort of a pseudo recap. And then what's the point? Like I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste my time thinking too in depth on something if I don't have anything that naturally comes to me, conversationally, And, it's not to say that this episode was lacking, but it was somewhat lackluster in the sense that it wasn't as highfalutin and hilarious as some of the previous, almost all of the previous episodes of this series. And it's rare that I am, especially when it pertains to ClassicaLoid, it's rare that I find myself lacking anything to really grapple onto conversationally, that I'm, feeling the absence of something to say about it. So I was kind of, disenchanted by that. Like, I got done with this episode, and I'm like, oh, what am I really going to say about it other than just sort of recapping everything that happens, Chopin's making this manga and such like that. And I guess what I'm going to kind of do is just explain how I saw it, what I thought about it. And I guess that's the point of these videos anyway. But I just feel like I don't want to be going through the motions, that is to say. I don't want to be wasting either of our time, for anyone who watches this video. The episode was enjoyable. I did find it enjoyable, but it just, I don't know. It almost had, for me, a melancholic, almost depressive overtone. Because whereas usually these episodes are absurd and they're hilarious, I found myself really feeling bad for all of the characters, Chopin and the three manga club, students from Kanai and Sosuke's school. I felt more bad for them than I was laughing at what was going on with the surroundings of how famous, Chopin's manga had become and everything like that, and how much he was just fawning over the attention that was being fawned over him, by these three students. I mean, he kind of, when we first encounter him in this episode, when they're praising him and they're calling him their hero and everything, he kind of looked a combination to me of John Lennon with the Lennon glasses, as well as Mad Mod, the character from Teen Titans animated series. I don't know why that is, just the hair color, the way his hair is cut, and those glasses. He didn't have a British accent or anything. At least in ClassicaLoid, but he reminded me of a combination of those two things. The absurdity, the madness surrounding his manga creation based on all the ClassicaLoids and Kanai and Sosuke and everything, sort of playing off of the Mad Mod thing, the kookiness of that character, but also, just the, I don't know, the bravado in a sense, the charisma, if you will, of his character when he turns it on. When he has these three students just glomming on him and idolizing him, very John Lennon-esque was his persona and his look, to me. And I thought it was pretty funny that he created sort of caricatures of all of the absurd, nonsensical aspects of all the ClassicaLoids, of, Kanai and Sosuke and everything like that. Sosuke is forever the put-upon, talentless hack who can never get anywhere, always has those high estimations and dreams, and never achieves anything. Kanai is the overbearing, demonic, mother hen, dead mother of Ottawa Manor, or whatever the fictionalized version was called. And all of the respective classicaloids. You know, they have character traits that are very much revolving around how crazy they are. You know, Beats with the flamethrower and their Gyoza obsession. You know, Schubert being obsessed with the Grand Master. You know, Motes being just off the wall Looney Tunes. And I love how when he's calling it into question, how could you paint me that way? And Kanai's kind of like, isn't that really just how you act anyway? I mean, it's truthful. And a lot of those things are truthful about, you know, the respective classicaloids. Liz, you know, she is somewhat obsessed with appearances, with the makeup and everything, but they kind of made her like, you know, Chopin made her look like an old hag who doesn't look any better for it when she paints herself up and whatever. And, you know, like you had Dovo-chan for some reason being walking on his hands or his front paws. I don't know what that was about. And then, of course, Chekhov and Bada are kind of like, I don't know, the maidservants in the manor house. And he's the primped up, Chopin himself is the primped up superhero. So this, of course, because he's lived a life mostly in this classicaloid form, you know, being somewhat of a shut-in, a recluse and everything like that, when he's created this manga as a sort of self-expressionism, it draws out the hearts of these three manga club students because they're the only ones there. You know, they're sort of fighting to keep it alive and nobody has any interest in it anymore except for them. And they've lived this reclusive kind of otaku lifestyle and are always being demeaned for it. I mean, they're the nerdy kids, the outcasts who feel like they don't have any place in the world. And that's kind of the life that Chopin in this classicaloid form has been living. And his work, his creation, the hilarity and absurdity of it, it's kind of akin to classicaloid. Maybe, you know, there's a lot more depth to the commentary there for someone like myself who's so attracted to the anime in the same way that they're attracted to his fictionalized version of all of his housemates and everything like that. I just thought it was a really interesting sort of thing to contemplate because they are drawn to him like moths to a flame, you know, flies to a zapper. And I really loved, you know, as far as each of the three of them, they all had a particular nerdy sort of hook that they were attracted to. The big beefy guy, Moko, I think was his name, is into wrestling and everything, where martial arts, mixed martial arts and things like that. You know, UFC is kind of the labor of love for a lot of people. He likes the classic old school wrestling. You know, you had Maihara, I think was his name, the middle one, who's very sort of Power Rangers-esque in his fandom and such like that. And I really liked the chick that rounded out the group, Ida, for her liking sort of, you know, heroines from classic literature. And I loved her dialogue, the way she thee and thou and all of that kind of stuff, sort of Shakespearean way of speaking. I'd actually like that to become a permanent trait of a character in this show. I just appreciated reading that dialogue, the way it was written out. And so, of course, they you know, the passion is evoked in them by this creation of Chopin's and this personage, this personality, this sort of faux identity, you know, that is sort of built around himself by them as an extension of their worshiping him and hoisting him up on a pedestal and everything like that. And in the end, when all seems to be lost, I mean, he convinces all of the classicaloids, he makes deals with all of them. They're coming over. I don't want to let them down. I don't want, you know, now that they've been primped up and sort of broken out of their shells, I don't want to crush that because they'll recoil and they'll feel like all is lost all over again. You know, they were all lost to begin with. And they derived some essence of hope out of my creation. So I don't want that to be spoiled for them. So please, everybody, act the parts as I portrayed them in the manga to impress upon them that this is real. It's legitimate. What they've grappled onto is not some fleeting thing. And it works for a time, but then naturally it all comes crashing down. But I love his you know, passion in that moment. It's like the story is well and truly not just about those three finding themselves, but it's about Chopin finding himself through his creation, through the touch and the magnetism of his work. the feelings and thoughts and emotions that instilled in this trio of students, he's like, this won't do. You know, when all is lost, this won't do. I've got to pick up with this again. I can't let their hopes and dreams be crushed. And so he very much lays out this commentary about the passion, the feelings, and the emotion that one derives through fiction, through literature. And it can be anything, you know, literature, writing, manga, anime, music, whatever it is, whatever sparks that emotion within you that is meaningful. Even if you've lived a reclusive lifestyle, a lifestyle where you've felt eschewed by the rest of society, where you feel outcast, you've probably still found something to delve into, to derive pleasure out of, to have feelings and emotions evoked within you. And it could be very, very well fiction. It could be a book that you constantly go back to, or you read lots of books and you get that, you know, movies and again, anime, TV shows, whatever it happens to be. And the overall commentary, you know, they're sort of banging you over the head with by the end is that's okay. You don't have to be sociable. You don't have to go out into the world and fight the crowds and try to be popular. That's not what life is about. It's about finding your zen, your happiness, your joy. And I kind of like that in the end, while Chopin himself is trying to burgeon that idea forth onto the lives of this trio who had hoisted him up on a pedestal, in a sense, you know, he is humbled by that, and a whole new dawn, you know, opens up for him. A whole new horizon burgeons forth ahead of himself. And then suddenly he takes himself on the road. You know, everyone's looking for him, all the promises left over that he made for them to pretend that they're like the characterizations he made up in the manga when the kids came over. And they go into his room and he's gone. And he's left a note behind, I'm finding myself. I've started something new. And he's traveling. He's going to be doing a travel blog as his sort of pseudo persona that has become so well renowned and so famed, because he needs more out of life than just keeping himself closed in. Whereas the three students, you know, they've sort of cumulatively begun working on a creative aspiration. You know, they've created a sort of thing of their own accord, answering to what he had first created, seeking some out, something that broke him free of this self-imposed exile, this prison he had contained himself within. But there's still that overhanging reasoning that, you know, you can be creative and you can express yourself and you can still live freely without necessarily bowing to the whims and the wills of society. Whatever it is, you can still find some level of pleasure in your life. And that overarching sort of sentiment is kind of just what I was basking in the glow of. You know, again, I mean, maybe I'm speaking at length about it in this video, and it's a lot more than I actually thought I was going to say about this episode. Again, going into it, you know, after the episode was done, going into the recording of this video, I was at a loss. I didn't want to go through the motions of just recapping the events, and I guess there was a lot more depth to it than I had first considered, now having fleshed it out in this conversational format. And I'd love to hear from you guys at this juncture, at this point in the video, what you thought of this episode, if you've seen it as well, if you enjoyed it. Love it or hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Our POVs can certainly disagree, and if you didn't have the same kind of reaction I did to it, if you thought it was just, you know, balls to the wall hilarity from beginning to end and you're not quite sure why I didn't feel like it was, or if you agree with me that there was much more a depth of commentary and character that they were putting forth, underwriting all of that surrounding sort of comedy that was, you know, put in there when he's begging and pleading the rest of the ClassicaLoids to pretend to be these character forms, you know, whatever like that he created for his web manga. But yeah, either way, I'd love to hear from you. Again, love it or hate it, whatever you got to say about it. And so yeah, otherwise that'll be pretty much it for me on this. If this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.